Hello everyone, my name's Alasdair Murray. I'm Chief Product Officer at Condatis and I'm going to be joined today by Rohit Gulati, Senior Program Manager from Microsoft's Identity Engineering team. And we're going to be talking to you about how user digital journeys can be transformed using distributed identity. We'll start with a brief introduction about Condatis and the Microsoft Identity Group before looking at two case studies or success stories that we've been working on over the last 12 to 18 months. One is in the NHS and the other is with Sellafield. Rohit has then kindly agreed to provide us with Microsoft's visions for verifiable credentials going forward before we conclude with some question and answers. So Condatis is a specialist in solving identity challenges for businesses. We've worked with government departments such as DWP, DEFRA, the NHS and the UK Hydrographic Office. We have three main strands to our business. The first is all around external identity and access management. We're a Microsoft Gold partner and we specialise in Azure AD B2C. And external identity and access management is all about securing and managing how external users and partners interact with an organisation's digital services. Secondly, we provide decentralised identity consultancy. For the last 3 years, we've been working with global organisations to help them formulate strategies and implement distributed technologies within their businesses. We're one of four global partners that Microsoft has selected to assist their clients to roll out Microsoft's verifiable credential capabilities. And then lastly, we also have or are starting to develop a series of decentralized identity products. And these are focused at really helping organisations to smoothly implement distributed technologies as they become available and as the technology matures. So the Microsoft Identity Engineering Group is really focused on working on complex identity engineering problems, and they do that at scale. They have over 1 billion users, and the team run these services to ensure that Microsoft users, when they're using the Microsoft Cloud, see a seamless experience in terms of using the different applications that are hosted across the Azure platform. So firstly, our first success story that I'd like to give you a little bit of an insight into is the UK National Health Service. So the NHS recognised right back at the start of the COVID pandemic that there could be issues across the 300 health trusts that make up NHS England in how they had to change resourcing levels or balance resourcing levels across their trusts as the pandemic unfolded. So NHS Blackpool Teaching Hospitals with Condatis, our sister organisation or company, Sitekit, who specialise in health, and Microsoft have been looking at how verifiable credentials can be used within a digital wallet to aid this rapid movement and onboarding of staff around the NHS to respond to the pandemic as it unfolds. So the system is up and running. There are over 100 registered trusts using the staff passport in NHS England at the moment, and it hasn't just stopped. It's also now been updated to also include vaccination training credentials. So as the pandemic unfolded and the realization was that we would need mass vaccination and vaccination centres would need to be set up, there was obviously some focus on how do we monitor and how do we track and how do we know who's been trained to administer those vaccinations. So the system was expanded after the initial release to include these vaccination training credentials as a way to, again, aid in the mobility of staff to respond to the pandemic as it unfolded. So just to give you some sort of insight into actually how it looks and how it works. What you see on here is screenshots using Microsoft's Authenticator app. Some of you may be used to seeing Authenticator. Authenticator historically has been used for multi-factor authentication when logging into services. So this is when you log onto a website and it asks you to look at Authenticator and to give a one-time password. But Authenticator is evolving and it is now able to support verifiable credentials. So within your digital wallet, you can hold credentials that demonstrate different aspects of your identity. So if you look at the second image along from the left, you can see here that the user has a series of credentials issued by different organisations demonstrating different parts of their identity. So where did they graduate from? What's their medical practice, their general medical council's practice license? Who are they employed by? Which hospitals do they work at, or is their home hospital? So what this enables you to do as a member of staff is when you arrive at a new hospital, you can present these credentials. And the aim here is to optimise the onboarding of staff into the NHS as quickly as possible. The NHS historically have known that it can take up to 7 days to get a member of staff onboarded. So through verifiable credentials, all that information can be contained within that clinician's wallet, and it can be presented quickly and digitally to the hospital that they're attending. But not only that, credentials can also hold information about the systems that people can access. So if we look in terms of the credentials on the far right, the credential on the far right is all around access to the NHS core systems. So not only are you verifying people's identity in terms of who they are, how they're trained and what they can do, but you can also provide credentials that demonstrate or provide the settings that they need in terms of accessing digital assets at the hospitals they're visiting. Secondly, the second success story I'd like to just quickly talk about is Sellafield. So Sellafield, with the digital catapult, selected Condatis to conduct a 9-month field lab. And the digital catapult and Sellafield were very interested in decentralized systems because they wanted to see whether it was possible to use decentralized identity to create a nuclear passport. This would allow high-value, high-trained staff to move within the Sellafield estate site itself, but also potentially to move between estate sites. So Sellafield as an organisation has 11,000 employees on the Sellafield site itself and several other sort of remote locations that Sellafield have in terms of office blocks and things like that. But they are part of 17 estate sites in the UK that are regulated by the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority, the NDA. Each of those sites has a degree of autonomy in terms of the technology and processes that they can employ. So Sellafield and Digital Catapult were very interested to see how decentralized identity could be used to create verifiable credentials that were usable within Sellafield, but also could be shared and used to create trust between different estate sites within the nuclear estate. We came out with 3 themes. So 3 themes became very important through the Sellafield field lab. Firstly, was all about onboarding. So in a similar way to the NHS, onboarding into Sellafield costs a considerable amount of money. It's thousands, if not tens of thousands of pounds per employee. So the optimization of that process in terms of getting people registered within Sellafield, ensuring that they have all the necessary clearances, is a core consideration for Sellafield in terms of optimizing that process. So the first thing we looked at using a digital wallet, using the authenticated digital wallet, was staff employment credentials. So as you see here on screen, we have credentials which are held within an employee's wallet, which can be used for physical access. So a guard on a gate can scan the credential and check to see it is the person they think they are, or it can be used for digital access as well. And on the left, you see a sort of a verifier where you can see the credentials that are being sort of verified by the system, and they appear on screen to demonstrate who these people are as they arrive on site. The second part was all around qualified personnel. So within the nuclear industry in the UK, training is extremely important. Sellafield has a training catalogue of thousands of training courses, and these are matched to the roles that people perform within the plant. And this is covered by a process called SQEP, which is suitable qualified experienced person. So the system that we developed and we've put in place as a field lab installation allows a user to hold on their phone all of the training credentials that they have. And this can then be validated either annually as part of a management review or annual review, or on demand as users are about to perform an action. Their training for performing that action can be checked anywhere on site. And so this is very important in terms of risk mitigation for Sellafield. And then the final area that we looked at really was building trust. So as I mentioned, one of the key aspects was that not only did Sellafield want to use this, but it would be extremely helpful if this could be used across the nuclear industry in the UK. So we demonstrated through issuance of credentials and verification of credentials that credentials could be used and shared and verified between different actors within the UK nuclear industry. So these are two success stories that we've had over the last 12 to 18 months. Let's now hear from Rohit at Microsoft on their current use cases for Verifiable Potential and where they see Verifiable Potentials going in the future.
Thank you, Alasdair. So you heard from Alasdair how Condatis team has deployed some use cases. Let's look at what's there in the platform, how Microsoft is working on it. So 3 years ago, as part of our mission to empower people and organizations to achieve more, we announced that we were incubating a set of new decentralized identity technologies. Now we are in our next phase of our plan. We are working on two parallel efforts. The first effort is around partnering with the decentralized identity community to finalize a set of high quality open standards that we all can support. And secondly, deliver the first GA release of our decentralized identity service in parallel with these still evolving standards. So in this new phase, we want to share 5 new guiding principles that we will use to guide both the efforts. Not all these principles will be realizable from the start, but we believe that all necessary over time to realize the promise of decentralized identity. So being inclusive, being secure, reliable, and trustworthy, supervisable, privacy protecting, and environmentally responsible. I've left a link on the slide for you to read more. So we ran a survey across 3,000 customers, and we got some themes back from the survey, and I thought I'll bring that to all of you. So 92% of the customers reached out saying that they do identity proofing today. Can we help them onboard employees, partners, and customers in a better way so that it's quick, secure, and safe? Secondly, can we offer solutions that can allow secure access to apps? That way, once the employee, contractor, vendor is onboarded, we can have secure access to systems, or it could be the secure access to the system for an existing employee. And the third theme that came out was, can we make sure that there is some self-service model that can be triggered by the platform? That way we can reduce things like the support calls that come to IT. So can we make self-service in a better way? So with these themes in mind, we started building a platform, and the service that we call now is Azure AD Verifiable Credentials. It's built on open standards. We have standards like DID. What is DID? It's a decentralized identifier that the user creates, own, and control. These are all globally unique identifiers. Then in terms of system, the decentralized system, we use something called as ION, Identity Overlay Network. It's a layer 2 permissionless and network based on purely deterministic site tree protocol. And Alasdair mentioned about the wallet. So we use Authenticator app as the user agent. It allows real people to use decentralized identities and verifiable credentials. And then we have a component on the diagram which says resolver. Think of resolver like a name service. It's an API that connects to the ION node to do a lookup and resolve DIDs for did method. And lastly, the service, the Azure Active Directory Verifiable Credential Service that allows issuance and verification in Azure, and a REST API for W3C verifiable credential that are signed by did method. So let's now look at some of the interfaces and some components that you will see. On the platform side, I mentioned the Azure AD Verifiable Credential Service. So as you onboard the service, it gives you an administration blade where you can create credential definitions. Using a display file, you can define how your card would look like black card, blue card. You can also define logos and themes. Then in the rules file, you'll specify the attestation model. You may want things like asking the user to authenticate against an OIDC provider or claims mapping using ID token and so on. On the developer side, we have a bunch of tools available in public preview. In April, we started with Node SDK. Now we have a request API. And on the wallet side, it's the Authenticator app. So let me just talk about what we are doing now with the request API. We recently announced the request API in public preview mode. And as you look at this service, the reason for building request API was to remove the complexity for developers. You can bring in your own platform of choice. You just use the request API to build applications that can issue and verifiable credentials from any program language that you're using. If you look at this request API, it creates that abstraction layer for you, and you can integrate very easily with Azure AD Verifiable Credential Service. So if you look at the link that I have left on the slide, it helps you look at a sample, and there are a bunch of samples across various platforms. We have the Node.js SDK, but our suggestion and recommendation would be to move towards the API so that as a developer, you're not worried about the complexities of protocol and what goes on in the behind. Plus, as we add more services, your systems are not impacted. You are just using one API to issue, one API to verify. So let me just walk you through some of the case studies that are available. On our public website, there is a reference to Government of Flanders, Belgium, so you can refer that. There is a case study around Kaya University where they had used verifiable credential service for issuing student passes, and then student cards were used against various systems. If you see that architecture pattern, you will see it is a customer that is transitioning from Azure AD B2C to verifiable credential service for a bunch of use cases. So I think it'll give you an opportunity to understand how you can bring this service to life in your scenario. Alasdair spoke about the NHS use case and the Sellafield use case. And together with Condatis team, we worked on RMIT University use case where in that use case too, we spoke about student credential, alumni credential, and training and micro-training credential.
Thanks, Rohit. So thank you for listening today. That's the end of our session. If you're interested in talking to us about your identity journey, our colleagues will be available at our booth and you can use the links. You can also book a one-to-one with one of our team after the event using the link on the screen. That's did.condatis.com/TDP21. You can also visit that link to download a recording of today's session, read our use cases, and find out about the work that we're doing with Microsoft and our clients. And we're very interested in working with you if you'd like to either talk about consultancy or conducting a proof of value around decentralized identity. So thank you very much.